Hey everyone, this is Ellie Mae with Swift Creek Customs, and today I have some great news. Today, Siser released the open public beta version to Leonardo Design Studio of 1.1.6. So it has been a little bit of time since the last update, but I know why, and I will explain it in this video. Now, I want to share some of those updates since I am on the Siser beta testing group. I have been able to play with this for a little while and be able to test some of these features. I've also reported some things, and let me tell you, I reported some things, they fixed them before they even released it to the public beta. So they are working, they were working very hard. Even though you may not feel like some of these updates are big, behind the scenes, they really are in all the coding and in what they have to do with both Windows and with Mac. So first, let me tell you how you can find this. You're going to go to the SiserNA.com website. You can go under Cutters and then Leonardo Design Studio, and you will be able to scroll down and choose the link here that says account Siser.com. You will need to log in or create an account if you have not already. At the top here, you're going to see the current release for Windows, which is 1.1.5. It was released January 25th. And then down below that, you're going to see the beta versions. So it tells you what the version type is. There's a little question mark here. Beta means test version. So we have tested it in the background. It was released to us so we could look at it and report bugs back. I did, and they were able to fix a couple of those before they actually pushed this out to the open public beta, which is awesome. So you can take a look at this. That means that beta, there may still be some things that we don't know about yet because one, we can't test every single possibility that people are using, and two, it can react differently for different people's computer systems. So especially when you're working with both Windows and Mac, if you have any questions, just post those in my Facebook group, the Creating with Siser Juliet and Romeo Facebook group. We take a look at those, we'll test them, and I'll pass on the feedback to Siser. They also are in my group and they see those as well, but we can check it out and see if it is something that needs to be fixed or if it's just something that needs to be tweaked a little bit. So that is where you're going to find that. If you want to download the beta, you can do that. Once it is released into current version, it will show up here at the top. So now you know how to find it. Let's take a look at some of these features. So I'm just going to pull in this list here. This is the general list of what has been released in this public beta version. Now, these are just some of the things, and you'll see at the bottom it says internal improvements and fixes. There are a lot of different little things that they have to adjust or that they've improved on, but they don't list out every single thing in this release. Some of them are relevant to users and some of them are not. Some of them take a lot more time, and we did see a little bit more time between updates in this case. A lot of it had to do with trying to implement the thumbnails, for instance, for both Windows users and Mac users. They have to be programmed differently, and I'll tell you, both of those companies don't always play nice with other software programs. So they really have to work at that, and it's a lot of behind the scenes things that happen. So I know some of it, but I don't know all of it. But I do know that we have some new features and new things that I want to share with you. So I'm going to start, and I'm not going to go through every single thing on this list because some of them aren't really easy to show you except in a special setting. So, and what I mean by that is I would have to set up a project in order for me to show you what it actually means. But let's talk about a few of these. So first off, rulers. You asked for rulers. One, they implemented rulers. Those were in the 1.1.5 software. So if you click on View in the top left corner, Show Rulers, there's going to be a ruler at the top and on the left side. You asked for movable rulers. That is now in the software. If you go to the right side with your rulers showing, On the right side, there's a little bar, directional bar. You can now move those rulers, so you can place those on your cutting mat, closer to your cutting mat. And they, in my case, mine is set to inches, so it shows up as inches. On the left-hand ruler, it is at the very bottom, and you can grab that and you can drag it in. So you could drag it here. I have the corner set at 2 inches, and this is the 1 inch mark. So let's see here. Actually, Siser, this is something that a lot of people don't know. That is actually the 12-inch mark on this side. So because of the way Siser Juliet and Romeo cut, they cut starting in the bottom left corner. The 0 mark is down here at the bottom. So if I grab this ruler, let me see here. Well, I will report that because my little ruler isn't moving. Not to worry, I will take that back to Siser. And as usual, when I'm on camera, one of those bugs just popped up, so I will take that back. Since it happened on camera, I can take that easily and I can pop it into the Siser beta testing group and show them exactly what happened on screen in real time. What I did was I closed my software and I reopened my software. It reset those rulers. So what happened was it just got locked underneath my toolbar, and that could vary depending on your screen size. So I will be putting that out into the Siser beta group, and they do listen. So I have no problem. Again, this is the beta version. This is where we encounter things. So I am confident that they'll get that one fixed. So again, you can move these ruler marks by grabbing the right-hand side of your ruler or the bottom left. And let's see if I can lock it up again. Nope, here we go. But it didn't like when I placed it down here underneath my toolbar. So I will report that. And then if you click on the Send tab, the rulers also show up on the Send tab. So if I wanted to move these, I can move them down onto my design mat here. I'm just going to click back to the design. And then the next one, which is probably even cooler than the rulers, is you asked for multiple tabs and multiple projects to be opened. It is now in the software. On the upper left-hand side, you're going to see my first tab is labeled Untitled. If you open a file, it's going to, let's see what I have. Let me open Recent. Eclipse background, it's going to show the file name up there. To open a new tab, you can click on the little plus sign. You can continue doing that. Keep in mind that the more data that's in your file, that takes up more processing power on your computer. If you do encounter an issue where your computer is bogging down or it is lagging, then make sure to start closing your tabs and try to keep less open. Some files can be very, very data heavy, especially if you are working with graphics. So just something to keep in mind. You can click the little X at the top to close the tab. And then the next one I'll just briefly touch on. It's at Improved SVG Gradient Support. This is one that I would have to open, find a file that it would work with and open that. But what it is it's when you open an SVG, it's actually keeping the graphics to that SVG. So I'll do a video on that later once I find a file to test that with. The next one is if I go to File Open, and this is with File Preview when opening files. So if I go to File Open and I scroll down on my list, I can see the thumbnail of my Leonardo Design Studio file in my files. Now this is a recent video that I just released on the YouTube. I'll put a link in the description below, but that is what these files are for. You can see the different files that I tested when I was creating that video. So you can see all of those thumbnails show up. Now, if you do not see thumbnails, it could be because of the way that you are viewing in your window. And this would probably look a little bit different for Mac users compared to Windows users. But if you're viewing at large icons or medium, those are where you can see those file previews. If you were to be viewing it in list format, you're not going to see those previews. So that is something, or detail, those just show little tiny icons. When you go up here to the large icons or extra large, depending on what you want to see, then you are going to see those Leonardo Design Studio thumbnails. And here, let's just make it a little bit larger so you can see this. So here is that template file. So you can kind of see what that file looks like before you open it. So another request that they implemented. Now the next one is DPI option when importing images. And I will grab an image here. So if I come up here to File and Open, I'm going to choose the same design that I used in a couple recent tutorials. So I'm coming down here. It is a PNG file. It is actually created for a sublimation tumbler. It's a Highland cow in a truck. And when I open it, it's going to give me a couple options. So you can choose print and cut, which means you could trace around the individual photo, or background image. Either one of these, you'll still have the option. Down at the bottom on this first panel is your resolution, your DPI. So you can choose what DPI you want it to open at. So just as a really generalized basic tip here, 72 DPI is when you're working with things on the internet or on the web, when you're viewing online. 300 DPI is what you want for print quality. Another thing to mention here is even by choosing this 300 DPI, it does not increase the DPI of the actual file. You cannot just increase DPI by clicking on a button. It is the original image quality of that file. So if somebody created a file at 72 DPI, you're not going to be able to increase that DPI just by choosing this option. It's going to open at the highest that it was created at. And then if I click on next, you can see that it opened as a background image. When I bring my image in onto my map, but in between those red borders, it shows up and it shows bold and bright. So this 300 DPI is what this image was created at, and it's going to print at that same quality. Now, in this particular case, the file was created, it's a sublimation file for a skinny tumbler. It was created with a white background. So that is why you're seeing the white background here, even though it is a PNG file. The next feature on the list is they released some options. I'm just going to close this here. In your text style panel, they released options down here at the bottom to show glyphs. So I am just going to type out my name, and we're going to choose a font style. If I come over to the left-hand side and I click on a font name and I start typing a font name, it's going to jump to that font in the text style panel. I'm going to choose this Samantha Craft because I know it has hundreds of glyphs. So before, we did have the glyphs option, but I reported back that not all the glyphs showed. Lots of these font files that are being released that in the last couple of years have sometimes hundreds to thousands of special characters or glyphs. While that may be nice when you're using a font style, it also makes things a lot more complex when you are doing the programming or when you're trying to pull in the fonts. So if I choose this Samantha Craft, I click on the show glyphs, and now it will show all of the glyphs in the font file itself, if that font has been properly installed on your computer. So you can see here that this Samantha Craft font, which is based off of the Samantha font, has lots of glyphs. I want to say something like 900 different glyphs. So you can easily work with those. If I was to just pick one to show you, if I click on, let's do this little Y. So my cursor's already at the beginning. If I click on that Y, I can come in here, I can highlight the Y here, and then I can choose a different one. I could highlight my M, and I can scroll back up to the M's. My little cursor thing disappeared. There we go. And I want a capital M, so I have to find those capital letters And it goes really fast, as you can see on the screen. For all these glyphs in here, it's not bogging down my computer. And I don't really like that, but it gives you an idea of how you would work with it. So all of those glyphs now show up in your text style panel if you have installed that font properly. And I was trying to find my E. Let's see here. I guess it decided to hide from me. So you can see there's lots and lots of choices. Here we go. There's an E. So you can make, with this Samantha Craft font, you can make all kinds of swirls and different things. And then when you're ready to put it onto your design mat, you click apply, and it's going to show up on your design mat. Okay, the next one on the list is use imported SVG custom dash when cutting. And that simply means it's another one I'd have to open a project file for you and find a specific project for. It just means that if the file was created with dashed lines, then it's going to bring those in when the SVG is opened as well. So it's just a new update to cutting files, especially for paper crafters, for that score line. A lot of files in the years back have been designed with dash lines, for instance, because Silhouette Studio uses a dash line as your score line. And so file creators have their files saved that way. Now, Leonardo Design Studio will open those files seeing those dashed lines. And the next one on the list is remember ruler on-off preference. This is because I have my rulers turned on under view. If I close the program, I'll just close it real quick here. No, I'm not saving changes, and I open it again. It opens up pretty quickly on my computer. And I click on the design, my rulers are going to stay there. So that was a pretty simple one. Updated Spanish language. So keep in mind when they are updating languages, they have to translate the entire software, all of it, instruction manual and everything that you see on the screen into another language. So they are working through that. Another neat one is the show fonts used for each text item when selected. So if I come in here and I choose a text, so I will just use my name again, and I choose this text style. When I click on apply, I can see now the text style that I used or chose is shown at the bottom. So underneath your measurement mark on your text that is selected, it's going to show your text name. Now, if I come back in here and I change it to a different text, you can see that it changes that name. One of the things that I really like about this, if I double click on it and go back into my text properties, if I choose auto weld and apply, I still have my text. And if I come in here and I made a copy, Control C, Control V, if I double click on that copy, if I uncheck auto weld and click apply, and then I manually weld that, it still retains that text name. So even if your text is welded, which means it has changed, it's no longer editable text. In this case, it actually is. That is pretty cool. It did stay editable text even though I welded it. So I'm just going to click over here on the Send tab. That one is selected, so it's going to go to my Send. And you can see that it is welded and it retained its text properties. So that's pretty neat. I'm learning all kinds of new things every day with this. So the next one is fixed force test for select tools. That'll be in a future video once I figure out how to show that to you, but I haven't encountered that one. It also fixed custom blade offset test. That is if you are using a, let's go over here to the Send tab. If you are using a different blade, the custom blade settings, if you're using a non-standard Siser blade, the offset, or where the blade actually comes out of the housing, may be different than a Siser blade. So I'm using Siser standard blades, so I'm not going to show that. but they did fix the custom blade offset test according to the list. And then another one that was on the list is in the last update of 1.1.5, we received these layers panel. The layers panel is pretty cool, and you can tell it to show or hide that layer, which means that when I go to the Send tab, it's going to, there's no selected artwork. Okay, click off of it. When I go to the Send tab, it's going to show me only the layer that is not hidden, and it's going to cut the layer that you see on the screen, not the hidden layer. So there was an issue there, that a bug that had been reported, and they fixed that. They also improved the cutter port settings, which is how your machine connects, your software connects to your machine. It was a little bit confusing, so they updated that. And then they have internal improvements and fixes. And as I mentioned before, that means that there are other things that really aren't usually relevant to us to know the very, very specifics of it. But they have a lot of updates that they have fixed in the background. I think the biggest one that they mentioned for this particular one, the reason it took the longest is trying to get those thumbnail images to show up for Mac users. Keep in mind that you're working with two different programs computer-wise, Microsoft versus Apple, and in my experience, it can be very difficult to work with Apple and try to get everything to work properly. And then you also get those Apple OS updates, and that just throws a wrench in everything. So I really appreciate all the work that goes in behind the scenes that we don't actually see. I really wish it was just a push of the button to make things happen. And I'm still requesting, my request was not addressed on this update list. I had requested that Leonardo Design Studio would clean my house and wash my dishes so that I could spend more time with Siser Juliet and Romeo, and I don't see that on the list. So maybe next time, Siser, but I hope you've enjoyed going through these. I hope you understand it a little bit more. Again, keep in mind, as I record this video, this has just been released to the open public in a beta form. So if you have questions, let me know on the Creating with Siser at Juliet and Romeo Facebook group, or leave those in the comments below. Check out the links in the description below for more information as well. Make sure to like and subscribe on this YouTube channel. Click the bell for notifications to be notified of future content. And I thank you for joining me. Have fun creating.